Reapshow here. So today I want to do a Friday the 13th franchise ranking. Now, Friday the 13th is one of my favorite horror franchises. Jason is 100% one of my favorite horror icons, up there with Michael and Freddy, obviously. Similar to my Halloween box set, I have a Friday the 13th box set for watching and then one for displaying, one that I haven't even opened yet. Honestly, I got pretty lucky with this box set. Didn't have to get the replacement discs for either. Now, the only thing that I did deal with, and the main reason I got two of them, is because I ordered it initially through Amazon. Mistakes, obviously, right? And got some impact marks here on the sides, you know. And I'm a real stickler for any damages to box sets, especially ones that cost as much as these do. So I ended up ordering one straight from Scream Factory, and that's why I've kind of kept it in the plastic wrap and everything. So, but yeah, love this box set. Quick little sidebar on this box set here. Love the box set. I really like, pretty much all the box sets we've gotten for Friday the 13th. Kind of going back to this steel book here. I really like that. I also have the DVD collection from Crystal Lake to Manhattan. That's pretty much what I grew up with, just watching those, watching them back to back over and over. Absolutely love this franchise. Can't wait to get into it here. Again, I'm going to use my letterbox list here. So, number 12, bottom of the barrel, Jason X. Now, I've just never been able to get into this film. I watch it just like the Halloween franchise. I watch it every year. I watch Halloween, Friday, and Nightmare on Elm Street. I watch them all. And so therefore I watch Jason X every year. And over the years, I just haven't yet to be able to really get into it. And that doesn't mean there's nothing about it that I don't enjoy. Some of the kills are fun. Obviously, Jason smashing that girl's frozen face is iconic. Absolutely incredible kill. There's some solid gore in it. Too much CGI, obviously. Too much bad CGI. Jason's design. I love that Kane Hodder's back. Love Kane Hodder. Definitely top tier Jason. But he's in so many of the bad entries. It's just tough, So his design too just varies so significantly, obviously throughout the whole franchise, but even just within Kane Hodder's appearances, it varies so much. So you get this one, and I'm talking the initial Jason design from the beginning of the film. He just looks too normal as Jason can really look, obviously, but I don't know. He does it. His head isn't too misshapen. His face is not as distorted as I feel like it should be. I just don't love the design. I think his eyes are too visible. Kane Hodder does such a great job at being menacing and intimidating, but he would have benefited from having him be not so brightly lit. Uber Jason is what it is. I mean, it's fun, it's cool, it's stupid. It's basically Power Ranger Jason, I think it's cool, but I wouldn't really want to see it again, obviously. And this film never really feels like a Friday the 13th film to me. Even when they do the homages, it just feels like a parody version of Friday, and it just doesn't ever resonate with me because it just doesn't feel like Friday the 13th. It feels like a sci-fi, just fan fiction type movie, and it's okay, we're bringing Jason to space. All right, I'm here for it, but I don't know. I really wish that I enjoyed it more than I do. And I understand people really enjoying this one, and I get it. You know, it just doesn't really resonate with me. And believe me, I've tried with it. This is really the only Friday film that I don't really enjoy that much. So that being said, that is currently where Jason X lies. Number 11, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. This is another one where the reason it has the edge over Jason X is because to me, it still feels like a Friday film. Kane Hodder's in it, that's a big plus. The kills are pretty lackluster, pretty tame. Even when you see the uncut versions of the kills in this box set here, they're still pretty tame. You know, this is the period of time where the MPAA was really coming down on these films specifically. They were really coming down hard on Friday, and it shows, you know, and it's gonna kind of be a theme here for some of these entries, that it just drags it down. To be fair though, I really don't think that it was really directed to have major gore, so I do think it was almost like self-centered by the director, Rob Hedden. You know, he directed this, and you know, this, you know, they bring Jason back in kind of a strange way. You know, his design, I wouldn't dislike it. I don't dislike it, but it wouldn't be as disappointing for me if it wasn't coming right off the heels of Part 7, where that's top tier Jason design for me. Absolutely incredible design. Then you get to this one, and it's like, okay, his clothes have somehow grown back, similar to, you know, Michael's hair growing longer and the neck growing from film to film. You know, these are things you have to kind of like overlook, but you know, and then you see his hands when he's coming onto the ship, and they're visibly very human looking. Very slimy and gooey, and that's a cool look. It's just like coming off the heels of Part 7, it's just always been disappointing to me. Also, the design of his face is terrible. And that's another one that just puzzles me. It's like, if you know you're not even gonna come close to that design from Part 7, don't even show his face. You don't really even need to, honestly. They cut the scene, the deleted scene where like little Jason's coming out of like zombie Jason's mouth, which thank God, because that's absolutely insane. You know, the cast is okay. I don't really hate anybody here too much. You know, they're all pretty blah. There's really not a whole lot to them. You know, there's some major plot holes in this film, and one of the reasons being is there's a deleted scene that creates a plot hole. So the whole idea that Rennie encountered Jason when she was young logically makes no sense, especially with like timelines, right? She's like a teenager on this cruise, and apparently she ran into young Jason. Timelines don't add up, right? So in a deleted scene, Rennie's teacher, who gives her the Stephen King pen, she says to her, you know, like Rennie talks about how she encountered Jason. She said, you know, he's been dead for years. You know, that kind of confirms, like, okay, so maybe that's Ghost Jason. And throughout the film, you know, I've always noticed this, and it's always kind of bothered me, where it's like you know, the visual representation of young Jason starts off looking normal. He doesn't even look deformed, and throughout the film he slowly starts to look more and more deformed. I think they were going for some kind of like arc for Jason's character. That's what I'm gathering, because it's like, I have noticed it does slowly start to degrade into like being deformed, and it is interesting when you think about it. I'm probably giving it too much credit, you know, but it almost feels like it's you know, young, innocent Jason contending with, like, vengeful ghost Jason, and Rennie's kind of like the one who can kind of see it all, and she kind of has this strange connection with him. It's very muddy. It's not ever really committed to. It's not spelled out. These are all things that I've just kind of like created theories about, but it's a fun thing to do, especially with these movies where it's like there's a lot in them that does not add up. So at the end of the day, I always have a good time with this one. I really do. Like, I have fun with how bad it is. I love Jason punching Julius's head off, going in the dumpster and slamming. That's great. Kane Hodder's awesome. Regardless of the film he's in, he's awesome. Love where he just punches the mirror and grabs the shard and just like kills that chick, where it's like, you know, would have benefited from showing more gore, but he brings the intensity where the gore is non-existent. He tries his hardest to make up for it, you know, and he does a great job, but slasher fans want that gore, and that is kind of what pulls it down. Also, you know, the fact that they're on the boat. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You know, Jason takes a boat, and then he takes Vancouver, and then he walks down Times Square. That's pretty much the film, right? So I'm fine with it, though. I mean, honestly, I still have fun with it. It doesn't even bother me that much, because it's, you know, Jason basically appearing on the dance floor. That doesn't bug me, because it's like, I guess he's Ghost Jason now, you know? And the whole, like, you know, Rennie encounter, that kind of almost confirms that he's basically like a ghost at this point. So, you know, it's fun. I have fun with it. I enjoy this entry. It's really the last gasp of air from the original Friday Paramount franchise that I absolutely love. So it's funny that it's number 12, and I say that I absolutely love and enjoy it for a multitude of reasons. It's not saying it's great, but I just have fun with it. So that is why it is number 11. It's bad, but it's bad in a lot of fun ways to me. So number 10 would be The New Blood, part 7. This one is such a mixed bag for me, because when I was younger, this is one that I really enjoyed. I had fun with this one. I always came back to it. It was one that I commonly rented from the library before I got my collection. And I always had fun with it, right, when I was a kid. But as I've grown, I've seen the things that, like, really pull it down for me. The characters are, again, similar to part 8, where they're just very blah, lackluster. They don't have there's not a whole lot to them. Tina, she has some depth, you know, she's okay, but never been too huge on her. You know, this is basically Jason versus Carrie, obviously. This is the angle they took, because they were looking to originally do Freddy versus Jason, couldn't line things up, so they settled for Jason versus Carrie, right? So this is kind of what they're going for, and some of the practical effects in this film are absolutely incredible. But MPAA really hacked this one to shreds, where some of the kills that are in this film would have really bumped it up the rankings for me. You can see some of these uncut kills on like grainy VHS YouTube videos. It's so disappointing, because it's like Paramount essentially destroyed all of the negatives, so like that's why it's not in the box set, because we can't access it really. So insane that they did that. I mean, they treated this franchise so poorly, yet they continued to keep reaping the benefits of how much it was making. It's like, just embrace it. I don't understand why they treated it so poorly. It's really irritating. Some of these kills, man, are just absolutely incredible. You know, obviously the sleeping bag kill, There's one where he's just crushing one dude's head and there's just blood pouring out. Just tough. You know, it's just disappointing that it's not included. But even that being said, let's say the gore was in there, the film it just doesn't entirely land for me. Even the ending where you get the dad that comes out of the lake, and originally he had like way more, a creepier, like grosser design, and they made them, dial that back. But even with that, that's a really ridiculous ending. So this is a ridiculous film. John Carl Buechler directed it, who I know he did Cellar Dweller. I enjoy his style. It's always been very blah for me, mainly because the characters, like I said, are not that engaging and captivating, and also the kills you just feel like robbed on. So it's like the saving grace is Jason's design is incredible. His design is quintessential Jason, at least quintessential zombie Jason for me. Seeing his spine just glistening in the moonlight, absolutely incredible design. I'm cool with the face. I don't dislike the design of his face. I know a lot of people think like it looks stupid, he looks like a frog. I still think it looks cool, looks creepy. Love how they've included all of the wounds from all the previous films. And I'm fine with how drastic his design changes from film to film. Honestly, I think it adds to it. I think it's pretty creepy. But yeah, part 7, like I said, it's always been one that I do enjoy going back to, but it's always just disappointing seeing those kills that are just so neutered. It's I wish we could just one day get those kills back in the film, even though that's basically impossible. But you never know. Would be awesome if we could get that included in the film one day. So that being said, New Blood, number 10. Number 9. This is one that recently I would say it's gotten a resurgence. And they are releasing a 4K of it. Arrow is doing a release of this film, and that is the remake, Friday the 13th, 2009. Now, I understand some hate for it. I get that they don't like Smart Jason. What I would say is it's too brightly lit, too shiny, too glossy, too clean for a Friday film. Jason to me isn't awesome. I think Derek Mears does an incredible job as Jason. I think he's intimidating, menacing. I think he does this really good job. Characters are whatever. This is a Friday the 13th film. Let's not forget that. I think the main thing is so much more money was probably put into this remake than most of the franchise. So it's like, I guess we kind of put it on a, put higher expectations on it. But like, I think there's honestly some hate given to this film that is kind of undeserving. Like, the gore is pretty damn good. I mean, there's some CGI, but there's some pretty solid practical gore in this film. The kills are solid. The first 20 minutes to half hour of this film is damn good. I mean, Baghead Jason has never looked better. Love the bear trap. Love how he dangles the chick over the campfire. That's great. Such a badass opening, and it does kind of drag after that, but it ramps back up. And I do enjoy the other part of the film as well. Not as much, but I do enjoy it. Now, Trent's another aspect of this film that people just cannot stand, right? Now, this is my take on that. Is he really acting poorly? I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he's very unlikable. He's a douchebag, but like, that's what he's playing. You know, I've never quite understood that. People really cannot stand Trent. And the vibe I get is it's like, it feels like they can't stand him because they think he's done a bad job or something. I don't know what it is, but it's like, if it's because you can't stand him because he's doing such a great job, fair enough. But I don't get that vibe, you know? I think he's just playing a douchebag, and I think he's doing a good job at it because he's incredibly unlikable. I mean, he's a douche. Really, from start to finish, he's never redeemed, and I think that's actually a pretty good decision because I like characters that don't have to go through an arc sometimes, you know? So I think the hate there is a little much. I mean, I get hating him, but like, are you saying he's a bad actor? Because I don't really think he does a bad job. He does a good job of being unlikable, you know? So I've never understood that. Also, a lot of love went into this film. I mean, they literally pay homage to the first 4 films in the franchise, where it's like you get 1 through final chapter, and I think that they do a pretty nice job of including all of them. It does feel like a greatest hits, meaning it feels very derivative, but it is a remake, and I think it's an interesting kind of approach where they kind of combined elements of the first 4 that were all integral plot elements that built towards something. You know, so yeah, this is one that I enjoy. I've always liked it. I mean, I'm not saying I love it, but I don't think it's a bad remake. I think it's a solid remake. So that's kind of why it's towards the bottom, but it's not at the bottom. I think it kind of checks all the boxes you want from a Friday film. You want gore. You want a intimidating badass Jason. There's nudity in it. It's like, what else could you want in a Friday film, right? Is it perfect? No. It's too glossy, too clean. Acting, I wouldn't even say the acting's that bad. I don't think it's anybody's really a standout, but I don't think it's really distractingly bad. I think it's just, you know, very serviceable is what I would say. So that is why the remake is at number 9. Number 8. Number 8 has always been a fun one for me. It is definitely always notoriously been a black sheep of the franchise. And that is Part 5, A New Beginning. Really enjoy Part 5, A New Beginning. I like the whole bait and switch. I like that it's Roy. I like this version of Tommy, John Shepard. I think he does a solid job. They just don't give him a whole lot to really work with. He barely talks in the film, and he kind of disappears for a large chunk of it. So I do enjoy Part 5. You know, the major drawback for me with Part 5, again, similar to Part 7, is MPAA hacked this one to shreds. You know, it's interesting how after Final Chapter, they came down on Part 5 super hard. And then after Jason Lives, they came down on Part 7 super hard. So, you know, it's tough. I love the dirty, sleazy nature of this film. I think that it's what I'm looking for in a Friday film. The gore could have been so much better if they hadn't just hacked it to shreds. The characters are actually fun. I'm not saying they're great, but they're fun. They're entertaining. Reggie the Reckless, love it. Love the bathroom stall scene. That's hilarious. You have fun with the kills, and there are some solid kills in it. It's just that, you know, the money shots are pulled out of the film, where it's like, you know, you're pulling out, you know, some of these integral parts of the gore, you know, and like I said, this was a interesting time for the MPAA where they were just like really hacking up movies, and it's, you know, I'm glad that things have changed with it, because it's kind of ridiculous to say that you have to censor a film that is for adults. I mean, if it's rated R, then it's for adults. So like, why are you still censoring it? It's rated R. Like, I don't understand that. It's always bothered me, but it's really a thing of the past, honestly. It's really not quite like that anymore. Things have changed, and they've changed for the better, in my opinion. So, unfortunately, Part 5 is a product of that time, you know. I think that the whole whodunit is pretty obvious. I think we know from a mile away that it's Roy. You know, the foreshadowing is kind of ridiculous, but I still have fun with it. I'm fine with Imposter Jason. We actually get Corey Feldman back for the beginning, and they actually shot that opening scene in his backyard, funny enough. And you get real Jason in it sporadically, in like hallucinatory sequences, so he's not really in it, he's just in Tommy's mind. I think this Tommy is kind of underrated. I would still put him probably, you know, last amongst the other Jarvises, but you know, if I got him in another film, he might be able to creep up there for me, you know. I think he's good. Like I said, he just doesn't get a whole lot to work with. Interestingly enough, this ending of this film feels a lot in the, you know, very much in the vein of Halloween 4, which I always liked that ending. I always enjoyed it, and they just never go anywhere with it. You know, it's like they're going for that shock ending, and like I said, this is a fun one for me. I always have fun with it. Really feels like a quintessential slasher. I just wish that the gore was there to back it up. Love the pseudo echo in his eyes scene where he's creeping up behind Violet. Yeah, that's her name, Vi. Great scene. You know, like I said, this has a lot in it to like. It's just neutered by the kills being cut down, and then the characters being pretty one note, you know. Still, it's a slasher. That's what you kind of expect, right? But I have fun with 5, but because of those things, I can't really, it's probably not going to come up a whole lot higher than number 8 for me. Now, a film that has come up for me, like significantly, pretty recently, is number 7, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. This is a wild one where never could get into it. It kind of had the similar effect that Part 3, Halloween 3 had, where it's like I couldn't separate the franchise from that film, and that's why I could never get into it. But recently I've been able to kind of like pull myself out of being so tied to the franchise and just watching Jason Goes to Hell on its own, and I had such a blast with it, especially watching the unrated cut. That brings it up drastically for me. The tent kill is absolutely incredible. I like the opening. It gives you that Friday the 13th aesthetic, and then pulls the rug out from underneath you, kills Jason in the very beginning of the film. I thought that was a really interesting, ballsy thing to do. And then it goes a completely different angle, you know, infuses a ton of lore within Jason's backstory, and building out kind of the lore of the Voorhees family. I wouldn't say it necessarily feels like a Friday the 13th film, but I still really enjoy it. I had a damn good time with it. It's so wild and out there. And Jason's in it a lot more than I really remember. He's in it in the beginning, he's in it in a few moments throughout, and then at the end. But he's really technically in it the whole film. He's just body swapping, essentially. This is kind of the angle they're taking. Like the design of Jason, I used to really dislike it, the whole swollen look, but I think it's practically, it's done so well. I like the idea that the mask has been on his face for so long that it's just like sunken into his face. It's like a part of his face now. I think that's pretty interesting. Would have liked a little connective tissue to the rest of the franchise, but I think they were kind of trying to distance themselves from it, being that this was the first New Line Friday film. Part 8 did not do that well, so they kind of were trying to move away from that. So I get it from a logistic standpoint, but from a fan standpoint, would have liked a little continuity there. You get some really fun characters. I mean, you get Creighton Duke, so wild. This whole film is just filled with interesting character actors, incredible special effects, some of the best in the franchise. Some of the special effects in this film are just knocked out of the park, and it's tough because it's in such a divisive film that it's like, if this were in like part 7, the actual gore, it's like, man, So like I said, I really had a lot of fun with this one this past rewatching, and it's really made its way up the rankings for me. I really enjoy the fresh new take on the lore of Jason. I enjoy it. It's weird, wacky, out there, but I like those entries. I have fun with the entries where things get weird. Those are the entries I have the most fun with, is when they really think out of the box and do something that may not even really work, but I respect the fact that they at least tried. And obviously at the very end, you get sets up Freddy versus Jason. So that's cool. That's a really interesting angle, and I kind of would have liked to see what Freddy versus Jason would have looked like within this universe. We know what it became, but what would it have looked like within this direction, this universe? I would like to see that film, honestly. So Jason Goes to Hell, surprisingly, has come up to number 7 for me. Number 6 is a film I just discussed, and that is Freddy vs. Jason. Now, this is not necessarily, it doesn't feel really like a Friday film, but Jason Goes to Hell, Jason, doesn't really feel like a Friday film either, and I enjoy it. Jason's in it. It's not Kane Hodder, Ken Kersinger, who appeared in part 8. He's the guy that Jason, when he bursts through that bar door and throws that guy at the mirror, that's Ken Kersinger. And he also was a stunt double in part 8, where Rennie runs him over. So I like his Jason more than the average Friday fan. I think that he's a bit slow and stilted, but I do really like his screen presence. I enjoy it. I think that he's pretty solid. I think it was destined to be Kane Hodder. It really should have been Kane Hodder. This was kind of these were their franchises. It had kind of become Kane Hodder was thought of as the definitive Jason, even though I wouldn't even necessarily say he's my favorite. I really like Kane Hodder, but there's some Jason portrayals that I like more than Hodder's portrayals. Not saying I don't like Kane Hodder, but he's just not my favorite Jason. But you get here, and this has been built up for years and years, and then you get Ronnie Yu directing it, who had done Bride of Chucky. Really didn't know either of these franchises, and it's honestly surprising to me that it's as good as it is. I think it's entertaining. I think it's fun. It's very much of its time, very much of the WWE wrestling type fight sequences. I think the gore is awesome. Some of the CGI is pretty damn bad, but it's not throughout the whole film. Robert Englund slips right back into Freddy. This is a pretty good balance with Freddy of humor and horror. I think that he is pretty. I think the balance is definitely up there for all of, within his Freddy portrayals. And overall, I always have an absolute blast with this film. There's some visuals in this film that are just so iconic. Love the ending. Love how Freddy and Jason are, the fight, the all-out brawl that they have, I think is great. I like him stabbing Freddy with his own hand. I think that's great. Overall, making him kind of the anti-hero, I get it. You kind of need somebody for the audience to somewhat get behind. He's not really an anti-hero, but he's, out of the two, he's the one who was probably more of a victim than Freddy, obviously. So naturally, you're going to probably get behind Jason more. Like the whole idea that Freddy brings him back to basically infuse terror into Springwood to then resurrect his legend. I think that's a pretty smart angle that they took. I feel that it would have been tough to try to include reoccurring characters from the franchises. It would have gotten a little convoluted. So I like that they kind of have this be its own thing, and that it's not so tied to the franchises to where it can kind of exist on its own. I totally get that approach. And then, the ending, love Jason coming out of the lake with Freddy's head. I think that's awesome. So, Freddy vs. Jason, middle of the road for me, number 6. Now, number 5. This is an interesting entry. It's one that was directed by a director that had also directed a previous entry in the franchise, and that is Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. Now, I have fun with this one. If you're not watching it in 3D, it's obviously pretty distracting, the whole 3D gimmick. But for me, it's fine because this franchise is kind of built on schlock and cheese, and I have fun with it. The characters are fun. Shelly's pretty damn unlikable. But, the final girl here, Chris, she's okay. I've never been huge on her. I think she's alright. I don't think she's the greatest final girl, but I don't think she's terrible. You get Higgins Haven here. This is the first time we get to see Jason with the hockey mask. Richard Brooker does a really good job as Jason. He's up there in my favorite portrayals of Jason. I think that he does a really good job. I like his lumbering, svelte approach that he takes to Jason. The design, the practical effects with his face, and the kills I think are great. Overall, this is a fun entry. It's never gonna be, it's probably never gonna crack, my top 3, but I have fun with this entry. It's one that I always enjoy going back to. I'd like to actually see it in legit 3D. That would be awesome. So yeah, Part 3, I always have fun with it. Like I said, every year I come back to it. It's a good time. So that is why it is at number 5. Number 4, interestingly, the original Friday the 13th. This one has probably historically been one of my least watched, because when I was younger, I just wanted to get to where Jason was in the films, and I had seen the original, but I just didn't go back to it. Now, going back to it, this is what started it all. I think that you get Pamela Voorhees in here, you get Betsy Palmer does a great job. Really enjoy the characters in this film. Really love the tone of it. This is a quintessential slasher right here. I think the gore is pretty damn good, honestly. The effects are solid as well. It's a fun whodunit. I really enjoy this one. And since I have not seen it as much as historically as much as the rest of the franchise, it's always refreshing to watch, because it's kind of an outlier to the rest of the franchise. The franchise had kind of become something that the original never intended. So it's interesting to watch the original and think, what if they went a different direction? What if they didn't even have any sequels? So I've always really enjoyed the original film, but it's just not my favorite Friday film. But still, it's top 4. So number 4, the original Friday the 13th. Number 3, this is a really fun entry, and that is Jason Lives Part 6. I love Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. I think that it really embraces zombie Jason. It takes it into new territory, and it is a good time. The gore is solid. I think that the direction of this film, it's done in a way where it's not reliant and dependent on the gore. So if the gore's not there, it just kills the film, like Part 5, like Part 7. It doesn't necessarily always need it, but it does serve it. And there's some incredible sequences where he just bends the guy back. Love when he comes out of the grave, when he's brought back to life with lightning. Love the face going through the wall, and that effect they use is awesome. Jason standing on top of the RV is great. When he does the triple capitation, I think that's awesome. Something that I've always heard is when he throws the one guy and he's got the arm, the guy's face, he hits the tree and the guy's face falls back and you see the smiley face. I think some people thought that was corny because they almost are led to believe that the face made the smiley face. I always thought the smiley face was carved into the tree and the face just made it red from the blood. So I felt that it was not corny, but I thought that it was just kind of a little wink, that never bothered me that much. I think Tommy Jarvis is great in it. His paranoia is what brings him back, and kind of they almost allude to Part 5 in a way where they're breaking out of the mental asylum, or the institute, where they're breaking out of the mental institution. They don't outright ignore it. They just it seems like it's alluded to enough. But the effects are awesome. Love the score of this film. Man Behind the Mask, absolutely love it. That's why it's top 3 for me. Love the design of Jason. I like Carpenter's Jason. I like this Jason. I think that the portrayal's solid. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's solid. I like, the look of Jason. He's a little slow and stilted, but I still really enjoy it. So this film is always going to be up there for me. That's a fact. So that is why it is at number 3. Number 2. This is always going to be top tier Friday for me, and that is Part 2. Friday the 13th Part 2. Love Baghead Jason. Love the direction they take. Regardless of if it makes sense or not, I think it's such a fun direction that you go in the direction of Jason. Getting revenge on, for the killing of his mother. Love that, opening scene, where he basically breaks into Alice's apartment and kills her with that knife, and then he takes the teapot off the stove so it stops making noise. I think that's smart, so that is great. And I like the look of Jason. I like that it's such an interesting thing that this franchise basically had not definitively nailed down the killer's look until the 3rd film in the franchise, and yet it was still successful. Almost makes me think, why didn't they just continue to change the look? Unless they were just constantly trying to find the look that they wanted to stick with. I don't think the whole drive was to change it. It was more just to find a consistent look. So I think that's why they stick with the hockey mask in 3. But you know, you get Baghead Jason with overalls, you get him living in the woods. I think that's fun. I think it's a good time. The gore is great. Love the kills in this film. The characters are all fun. You get one of the best final girls in Amy Steele. I think she really does a great job. I would have liked to see more, you know, the next one kind of continue with her. But the ending does make things kind of confusing, you know. But like I said, this one is always going to be up there for me. I think this is top tier Friday the 13th. It's not my favorite Jason, but I really like this version of Jason. So part 2, always got a place in my heart for part 2. That's why it's number 2. But number 1, Friday the 13th, the final chapter. This is quintessential Friday the 13th. If someone were to ask me, you know, what film they should start with if they wanted to just watch one Friday the 13th film, what would it be? Final chapter, 100%. This is honestly like one of my favorite slashers. It's so perfect. Like, the characters are all great. I have no problems with any of the characters. I think they're all captivating. I think they all feel lived in. You know, you get some really good characters here. And then you get my quintessential Jason. Ted White is my quintessential Jason. I think he's perfect where he's lumbering, but he's not bumbling. And that's the one thing about Brooker. Like, I like Brooker, but I like the menacing, intimidating, you know, approach a little more than like the bumbling, tripping and falling type approach. Yeah, the gore is incredible. This film is very serious too. You know, it takes a very serious approach. Love the whole dynamic of the family. You know, the Jarvis family. I think that is a really cool dynamic. You know, I like the whole, you know, angle they take where the guy's basically hunting Jason because his sister was killed by Jason in part. Basically, they're saying part 2 is what I gathered from that. But really like all the characters in this film. Jason's top tier for me. You know, and like I said, the gore is incredible. So, not a whole lot more I can say about this film. It's definitively my number 1. I don't see that ever changing. So, final chapter, number 1. Like I said, love this franchise. Wild to me that there's only 12 entries. What I would say is I am happy though that at least the physical media continues to keep coming out. Like, they just released these cool steel books. They're going to be releasing the 4K of the remake coming out. They've always had really good physical media, even if they're in the middle of this lawsuit and we're not getting any films. But if you haven't seen the Never Hike Alone films, check them out. Those are really good. That'll help tide you over until we get another Friday of the film, if we ever do. But compared to Nightmare, physical media is on point with Friday. I got no complaints. I'm going to have some gripes with some logistics of the Scream Factory box set, but I think I didn't really have any problems with it for the most part. I just know that most people did, but the fact that we got this box set is honestly like unbelievable. So, you know, Warner Brothers needs to take notes from, you know, Scream Factory and all the companies that have come out with the incredible, like, you know, physical media that Friday the 13th has. So, yeah, but that's a conversation for another time. Love Friday the 13th. One of my favorite horror franchises. Can't get enough of it. What are your guys' rankings? What are your favorite? What are your least favorite? Let me know in the comments. Till then, that's it for now. Peace.